Matt from Midland, Michigan. You said college football never felt bigger than when Florida and Bama played in the SEC title game. What sets that apart from the other big conference title games that have happened since then? Really good question. Talked about this a lot because we were kind of delving into that new documentary that's coming out, Swamp Kings on Netflix, and it's about the Florida Gators 06 to 09 run under Urban Meyer. And I assume that they're going to heavily delve into these SEC championship games that they played in 2008 and 2009. And I said at the end of the Sunday night show, I said, those games felt like the pinnacle of college football to me. That period of time, college football's never felt bigger to me than it did when it was Meyer versus Saban. It was Tebow. It was Mark Ingram. You got two Heisman winners on the field. Both of them are undefeated in 2009. Florida's going for history. Like, Florida is coming off a national title that they had to go through Bama to get the year before, and they're looking to be coronated maybe as the best team of all time. But the point is, it was 1 versus 2 both years, and this is the BCS era. Those teams are the two best in the country both years. They're the two best in the country, but they're not meeting in the national title game. They're going to the SEC championship game. And the country kind of viewed the SEC title game as the national title game both years. Both winners ended up going on to win the national championship, but the stakes were maximum. The environment was maximum. There was such urgency. There was no safety net under the game. You had legendary head coaches. You had legendary players on the field. Future NFL stars littered across both rosters, and you were watching an apex predator in the Florida Gators. That program had become the apex predator in college football, and you had a guy in Nick Saban come into Alabama and in no uncertain terms say, no, we're about to take that from you. And they tried in 08, and they just missed. And then they got there again in 09, and they took Florida down. And what you knew, because I was in the building that night, what you knew, what you were watching, is you were watching a changing of the guard, not just in the SEC, but in college football. Now, what we didn't know at the time is Urban Meyer was not long for Florida after that. In fact, he was out of there after the next year. I thought we could very well be setting up at the time for like the SEC's own version of the 10-year war. That was Bo Woody up in the Big Ten. I thought we could be setting up for that. Think about that. If Urban Meyer does not bolt from Florida, I know the health concern, blah, 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 whatever you think took him away from Gainesville. If he just stayed there, if they stayed the course, and it was Saban Meyer for like another decade, like, think about what the SEC would have looked like. Think about what that back and forth would have looked like. Because when he was gone, the next biggest challenger to Bama ended up being LSU. And then those games were legendary too. But if it was Saban and Meyer, and they're on opposite sides of the SEC, so they wouldn't have always even met in the regular season, that would have been legendary. As it was, we got a taste of it. And I think what it was this was pre-opt-out, like no one had ever opted out of anything. This was pre-playoff, so no one was focused on the playoff. This was maximum regular season. It was maximum importance on every game. You lose once and you're going to be done. And both of them go into the SEC championship game 1-2 each year, and the loser knows we're out. You'll never get that again because you could never have teams that elite go into a late season game knowing that we cannot lose today or we're going to be out of here, because the expanded playoff will remove that urgency. And so some of you think that's worth it. Some of us don't think that's worth it, but whatever, it's going to happen. I have not felt like college football's ever been bigger than that time. And I think some of you, I got a huge college audience that listens to the show. So some of you were alive when this happened, but maybe you weren't old enough to like really get it. I got it. Like, I was at least old enough at that point to get it. And if you got it, I think you know what I'm talking about. And there's some folks who were on those coaching staffs who listen to this show, who I've spoken with because we talked about it Sunday night. They echoed the same sentiment, man. Everybody was locked into that game. Those two games, everybody was locked into. Amazing times.